Hello, and welcome back to our next installment looking at some of the things that you need to consider when making an international move. In this category, we're going to kind of glance at the visa requirements, the legal requirements that you could be dealing with in this kind of a move. The first thing that you need to consider is what kind of visa you're actually going to need. Just like making a trip for vacation, you have to kind of look at what visas specifically will fit what you need to be here for. Diving into some of the different kinds of visas there are, you need to consider this when making your move and where you're moving to. One thing that you want to consider is what you're going to be doing after you've moved, where you're going to be working, where you're going to be living. All these can make changes and differences in the type of visa that you're looking at. I would highly recommend you seek out a solicitor to help you with this from the local country that you're moving to, or a lawyer, someone who can help guide you through that correct path. There can just be so many different little loopholes, little loops inside the loops, trying to navigate a fairly complicated system usually. It's really important to make sure that you choose the right visa. This is something that's going to not only affect you in the immediate after you make your move and how you can live and where you can live and what you can do and what you can't do. It could also affect you 3 years down the road, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. So making the choice now and making sure that you have an informed decision about your choices can change what your future could look like completely. So this is what might seem like a small part of this video, going over a major thing that you have to consider and think about and look into. But I don't want to overpromise, overstipulate, or underpromise, understipulate anything that could legally, bind you some way. You really need to seek advice from lawyers in that country that you're going to, solicitors in the country you're going to, people who are immigration specialists. In some cases, the immigration authority, the customs authority, they may actually have helplines that can, help guide you through what you need to be looking at, what you need to do, and what requirements you're going to have in the future to make sure to keep your visa current or invalid. All the different visa types are going to have different eligibility requirements, so you need to make sure that you check all the boxes for every visa that you're looking at as a possibility to use when making your move. Then you'll need to make sure that you're working through the application process, following each step correctly. After you make your move, there's going to be some stuff that you're still going to need to do depending on where you move to. Some places, like us here moving to the United Kingdom, we had to change our address. We had to have an address set up for when we arrived, with all of our paperwork and all that kind of stuff. But we didn't quite yet have the right to abode, which meant we couldn't actually rent a place yet. So we were just having to use a temporary, in this case we used an Airbnb, which if that's a possibility, I would highly suggest that. We stayed at our Airbnb for a couple months, and after that we made our move to a house that we were able to rent. But it gave us that time to be able to get through that process. It also gave us our stuff time to get here so that we could move into the house and actually have things, which also kinds of lead us into our next part of this, is you need to make sure you have all the documents that you might possibly need ready and at your disposal. For us, we had a folder and we had all of our important documents in that folder, and at every move we made during our move, we made sure that folder was right there with us. During a move, it's important to keep these documents handy just in case you need them. There could be different circumstances in which they are needed. Your future employer might want to see something specific in order to help them complete their background checks on you, as they more than likely won't have direct access to most of the background checking systems that are available in the United States. they'll need to have those documents or have access to them so that they can do a little bit more diving into who you are, just to make sure that you're safe. Because everybody wants to work with safe people. Nobody wants to work with dangerous people. So keeping these documents close and at hand is a very important thing during your first initial part of the move. Once you get settled, you can usually figure out a place where you can keep them that'll keep them safe, keep them out of the way, but know where they're at so that it's easy to grab them whenever you need them. I will say in this, one thing that we did that immensely helped us with our documents as well, we scanned everything before we started our application process, and this allowed us to just click and drag PDFs of different documents as they were needed. The whole process can take time, and depending on where you're moving, it can take a lot of time, and it will drain you. You'll be sitting there twiddling your thumbs, trying to wait to figure out what's going to be that next chapter in your life, and you have no idea what tomorrow is going to bring. All waiting for those documents to, the final visa to come and say, hey, you're welcome to come. We were pretty sure we were going to pass all the immigration rules. We had dotted all the I's, crossed all the T's. We were making sure that everything was in order for the move. But it's just that time period that you're sitting there waiting for the visa. And there is that little sense of fear that's going to creep in and go, well, what are you going to do if you don't? In our case, we had already gotten rid of our house. We were staying in an Airbnb there in Kansas City, trying to figure out, well, if this doesn't work, we sold all of our stuff, so we're going to have to move somewhere. Where we're going to end up moving. So to conclude, this is a very daunting part of the time and process, just in trying to figure out the visas and the legal requirements to move to the new country. And you can't, in this, forget the legal requirements and things that the United States are going to have on you after you become an expat. Because as an expat still making an income, you're going to be expected to continue to pay taxes, report your financial holdings, and you got to keep up your passport. You got to keep all the different branches of the federal government happy, and possibly the state governments, depending on where you're coming from, just to meet, their requirements, to then turn around and meet the requirements of the country that you're moving to, because they don't want someone who's not going to meet their home country's requirements. This is a part of the process that you really want to spend time in. You really want to seek advice, seek help, reach out to people who may have done it already. And you can always feel free to ask us for our opinion on something if you're getting ready to make the transition to the United Kingdom. Different countries are different, different visas are different. We're happy to share our experience with you and help you in that part of the process if it is needed. And also, don't forget to like and subscribe. And stay tuned for next week's episode, where we're going to dig into the cost of living situation in an international move.